past, there's been some duplicates and whatnot, and this time around seems to seems to be all fresh questions that I have not answered before, which is always fun, and um, and there are plenty of them. I guess before I get too deep into this, I should ask, can you all hear and see me in the chat? Okay, cool. Very good. And does everyone have their cup of coffee? I mean, for those where it's, still relatively morning time. Let's see if I can fix this lighting situation here. No, that seems to be worse. Get a little extra light here. Okay, a little bit better. Let's see. How are we feeling about this? Okay, cool. Then this is what we're going to go with. Thank you all for being my tech support. Yes, I actually do have facial features. Yes, Susan, you will get overtime pay. So, as I was saying a minute ago, doing a video a week all year can be challenging in really good ways, but also at a certain point in the year, I kind of do feel a little bit of burnout where it's hard to come up with new ideas. And considering the timing of Halloween this year, and truth be told, the fact that I just did not have a good idea for a video this week, I thought it might be a good opportunity for us to do a little Q&A and a little check-in, and so that's exactly what I'm going to do today. I have quite a few questions that were submitted through YouTube and through Instagram, and I will also be taking questions from the chat. So if you're joining us and you're not in chat, go ahead and pop on over in there and ask your questions. And as I see them come through, I will do my best to answer them. Yeah. I'm a little like half awake this morning. You have to forgive me. The coffee is not kicked in yet because I overslept. And so I'm not quite the usual version of me for the live stream, which truth be told is a bit of a like cracked out, jacked up on caffeine version of my normal self, which is a very low power model. um, well, it's been about 5 minutes, so I'm just going to start jumping into questions. And I already see one here in chat from Jim Doris. Had a quick question, maybe for next season. Can you do a slightly larger prop build, maybe a hearse for the graveyard? Well, funny that you should say hearse, because a long time ago, before I had, I shouldn't say before I had my YouTube channel, because I had the channel, I just wasn't using it. I actually did build a hearse, and I think there was a video that I had put together that was really just like a photo slideshow. And it probably took me 3 or 4 months to build the hearse. And it was a scaled down version because where do you put a hearse? And and I also kind of felt like it just made more sense with the fact that our graveyard is somewhat scaled down from full size. And I built it, and we ran it in the haunt for a couple of years, and then I could not wait to get rid of it because it took up this massive footprint in our backyard. And so, um, I don't know that I would ever build a hearse again. And as far as larger builds, there might be one on the horizon. It depends on the client. But it would be a fun haunted mansion themed project, if that should come to fruition. And I did build the sort of New Orleans style crypt last year. That would be a fun one to go back and watch. Thank you, Original Bagel Boy. I appreciate I'm so not firing on all cylinders this morning. I appreciate the tip. Super chat. Thank you, Haunted Mansion fan. Ooh-wee. This is going to be a weekend. Yeah, so there's the crypt build from last year. That would probably be the largest thing that I've built for the channel outside of the Haunted Mansion door frame, which is a series of videos that you could go watch if you wanted to see something bigger. But as far as stuff in the future, it's a tough call. Our yard display is at a scale that works for our house. And so anything big tends to really look out of place because it's like the only one of its kind in the haunt. And so, I may do like a monument or something like that. I've got a couple of ideas. I actually you can see right here. I don't know. There we go. Was sketching out sort of a new monument that I was thinking about making with like a half face bust kind of a thing. But with October coming to a close, the Halloween related projects will start to sort of taper off, and I'll do kind of the mental reboot that I do every year, so that when we do get back into closer to the summer months, when people really start planning their haunts, then I'll actually have a bunch of fresh ideas to bring you guys. Let's see. Have you ever thought about using a content calendar to plan out your videos for the year? I've tried to sort of schedule out videos. It's challenging for me sometimes because of sometimes I'll have a really good idea that will just supersede everything else. And when I get a good idea or what I think is a good idea, that tends to be the thing that I get fixated on. And so all that other stuff kind of slides to the back burner, which kind of makes using a calendar a moot point. The other problem that I have is sometimes it's just tough to find materials, or if I've started down a pathway to build something and then I find that there's some kind of hang up, that can be challenging for a weekly release schedule. And so, a lot of times I basically get through the weekend, and on Monday morning, I'll kind of jot down some notes, make a mental list of things, and then we'll go with what I think. Either, if it's this time of the year, it'll be what I think makes the most sense content wise for what people are looking for. Um, and then the other thing that would come into play is, how excited am I about that idea? So content calendar it's a tough one for me just because I'm a little bit all over the place creatively. Let's see. What else do we have? I know I saw one in here. Susan Owen, was there any build you put off doing because you thought it would be a pain that turned out to be super easy? No. No, I will say there's been a lot of builds that were the opposite that I thought would be really easy that ended up being a pain. The wilting flowers prop from a couple weeks ago, I thought I really had it figured out, and turned out that I did not. So, I think more often than not, things seem easier in my mind than they are in reality, and that it just kind of is what it is. You can tell which video or which uh, props or builds those are because they're usually the ones that come in multiple parts. Let's see. Carrie, whatever happened to part 2 of the skeleton tombstone moving prop? Can't remember seeing the title. I had a skeleton. Oh, yes. So I started building that. It was a rocking skeleton kind of thing. It was sort of a play on an existing prop, and I was trying to get some additional movement out of it. In the end, I was kind of just moving it around my workspace a lot, and just wasn't excited about going back and working on it any further. Um, and so I posted it to my local Haunter buy sell group, and someone took it off my hands. So that's what happened to it. Are we talking an automotive hearse or horse-drawn wagon? It was a horse-drawn hearse. Um, okay. Did I ever receive an update about Neil Patrick Harris's door? I have not. I know that it arrived, and and he has it, but I think it'll probably be some time before he gets around to installing it. It seems to be very busy or likes to keep busy. Um, and I know that he has had the actual door from the ride for 5 or 6 years. So if that's any indication of the sort of timeline to get it installed, it may be some time before I get to see a final installation photo. How to find local haunts and walkthroughs besides using the SoCal haunt list. Well, if you're in the LA area, that's your best bet. And I'm saying that A, because it's true, and B, because I run the SoCal haunt list. Um, there's I'm sure there are other websites and apps. I know some local newspapers will do it. I know like the Santa Clarita Valley Sentinel Tribune. I can't recall what the name of their local newspaper is. I know they do a list, but it tends to just be Santa Clarita Valley. So if you're looking for something that covers a lot of ground, SoCal Haunt List is going to be the only one um, for Southern California. Outside of Southern California, there's Fright Maps, there's Haunted House Finder. There's I'm drawing a blank. There's a lot of sort of websites, kind of like the Haunt List, where it's just haunters who wanted to put together a list of their, like local haunter friends, displays and walkthroughs and whatever. And um, so I would just kind of do like a Google search for whatever area you're in, and then like maybe local haunted houses. Let's see. Have I ever considered a facade to transform the actual contour of our house? No. So much of what we do for our haunt comes down to storage. If we don't have a place to store it, then we're not building it. And so, thankfully, our garage has a lot of raised shelving, and all of the tombstones and things like that can go way up high off the ground and out of sight for um, most of the year. And anything bigger than that, like our cemetery columns are probably the one biggest thing, and even those kind of get stuffed away into the garage. So it's not likely to happen. Although the thought has crossed my mind, I would probably be more inclined to do projection mapping across the front of our house to change the look of it than to build practical flats. What products do you recommend for hard coating larger foam props that need to be durable for use around kids? This one kind of depends. So I've always been a fan of Drylock, but Drylock is not technically a hard coat. It does have some flex to it. You can mix tile mortar and latex paint to get a Drylock-like product that's a bit more rigid. But I think if you're like really, really concerned about durability, you may just have to go to like fiberglassing stuff, which is a total pain. Um, there's like foam coat and stuff like that, but I haven't had a chance to use any of it, and so I can't say with any certainty how durable props would be covered in it. So there's quite a few options. I think you may just have to kind of look at the things that will receive the most contact, and then maybe start working on those first to make those the most durable, and then anything else can kind of get some alternate version. Um, but yeah, I would probably look into those things. Um, do I have a fog machine or a fog chiller? So weirdly enough, our house, excuse me, our house is in like the middle of a block, and the wind patterns push left to right or right to left or west to east or east to west. And so there's no containing it. Um, and there's no forcing it to go where we want it to. And so I ended up selling our fog machine a couple of years back just because we never used it. I wish we could. And um, even chilled fog doesn't matter. It ends up in places that we don't want. Any plans for more Haunted Mansion props in the future? Yes. One that I will be building sometime probably in the next month or two. I'm planning on tackling the Madame Leota crystal ball, but it's not going to be a projection from outside. It'll be projected from inside. So that should be a fun, challenging one. It'll probably be multiple parts because I've already been toying with it in my mind a bit and doing some sketches and talking with other haunters, and I think it's gonna be sort of a finicky build, so I'm trying to figure out a way to simplify it to make it a lot easier to do that doesn't require so much, adjustment and whatnot. Let's see. Any recommendations for creating a larger cemetery gate archway to go across a 14-foot wide driveway? You're probably looking at, metal conduit. Uh, PVC is not gonna be rigid enough to hold its own weight for that wide of a span, so I would probably start there. Um, I think Harbor Freight probably sells, like, a pipe bending tool so that you could get a nice soft curve, but outside of that, I mean, the your side columns could be, made of wood and foam, and then you just have to figure out how to mount the, pipe. And if you don't do conduit, which was just my first thought because it's likely to be cheaper if you did, um, square tubing, definitely be easier for, like, mounting any kind of lettering and things like that to it. Um, yeah, I would probably start there and then just really, like, figure out the logistics of it first to see if it's even, like, physically possible before you start, building. Do a lot of sketching, take a lot of measurements, um, and honestly, like, talk to local, um, like, metal supply places and stuff like that, and kinda pick their brains. People that work in those types of industries love weird stuff, I've found, and they will rarely turn down an opportunity to talk to someone who's genuinely interested in hearing what they have to say, and so, yeah, like, pick the brains of the people at the stores that sell the product because they're going to know what the tolerances are of these different types of materials, which may inform your build. So that is where I would start. Let's see. Talking about burnout, do you have any interests that aren't related to Halloween or making props? Um, I mean, yes, we all have varying interests. Um, when I'm not prop making or doing Halloween, which are kind of all together for me. Um, I really like music, although I have not made music um, in the last few years. For those who don't know, prior to all of this nonsense, I was a professional musician. You've probably heard my voice in some of your favorite movies. Um, and so I did that during, let's see, from the time I was 6 until I was 21. And so, there's music. I also love sneakers, um, which I know sounds like a weird hobby. Um, but at one point, I was like a sneaker collector. Um, yeah, honestly, like for me, dealing with burnout really is just about changing perspective and taking a little bit of time away from the stuff that I do like day in, day out. Which is why next week there won't be a video, which is my annual tradition and my YouTube vacation that I give to myself. Um, I always take the week after Halloween off from making a video to have a little bit of that separation so that I can kind of clear the air and not have the feeling of like, I have to get this video done. It's got to be interesting. It's got to be, engaging to people. Um, the thing about making YouTube videos that I don't think a lot of people consider is like, it's, there's a lot more that goes into it than just like making the video. You're thinking about how will the video be received? How long does it need to be to monetize it well? Um, is it seasonal? Do you want it to be seasonal? Are you trying to make it so that it's evergreen content that can be watched at any time in any year and still feel fresh? How do you do those things? Um, so there's like all of that sort of additional stuff happening in the mix while just trying to come up with a good idea and do it in a way that is accessible to people. And so having an opportunity to step away from that for a week, or in this case 2 weeks, although if I'm being totally honest, I've spent this last week um, working on stuff for future videos. um, it's nice, and it's like, taking a vacation from your 9 to 5 job and being back in the office after a few days and feeling like, okay, I can get back into this again. So that, I think, more than anything, is a better way for me to deal with burnout than um, anything else. It's almost like being able to do something for myself, like to do a quickie project that's like something I've thought I would do someday, and to just like take a couple days and build stuff for yourself. Um, that is a great sort of burnout repellent for me too. Let's see. Um, would I consider doing a tutorial on making a reusable mold for making carvable foam pumpkins? Um, I've actually thought about that. The downside is it's relatively expensive. It's a lot of material, um, and is likely to be a pretty narrow, like super niche video subject. Um, that said, if you wanted to watch one now that would actually prove all of those points, Dad Crafted over on YouTube just released a video a couple days ago where he did make a mold of a pumpkin. He did a half pumpkin. Um, but that would give you an idea of sort of what goes into doing it, and um, might be a good place to start. Can I do a how-to video on the Hatbox Ghost custom costume I made? Um, the the Hatbox Ghost costume. Well, to be clear, I didn't make the costume. I just made the hat box, which was a 3D model that I made a few years back for a client, and it was just a 3D print that then got sanded and coated in reusable, or I'm sorry, flexible rubber spray. Um, because I don't say any brand names. um, so there's kind of not a lot to it. I know a lot of people have issues with the 3D printing projects. What can I say? They're a huge time saver. Um, but I don't think I'll do a video on that hat box. Um, if someone should ask me to build one, then that would be a good opportunity to do it. But otherwise, I don't see myself making one in the future, at least not making it the way that I've made that one. Like, I might make it out of foam or something else, but, um, it's, not on my to-do list as of right now. Oh, Brian and Carissa from the Smugglers Room are in the chat. Welcome, guys. Thank you for the super chat. Let's see. Have I thought about doing prop rebuilds or makeovers? Um, off and on, I've thought about it, but never. I think I've actually done a couple. I know I did a follow-up video on the haunted shovel a few years back. Um, I think there's two videos that I call remixes, that that have gone back to try and upgrade older props. Um, but if there's any that you've seen that you think would make a good candidate for that, leave a note in the chat and I'll add it to the list because I'm, doing a video a week. I need all the help I can get. Let's see. Have I ever used Sika post expanding foam in a project? I have not. And I don't know that I've actually seen it in stores here in Los Angeles. Um, but I can't imagine it's all that different from your standard two-part um, expanding foam that you'd get from a place like Smooth On. Let's see. That actually is a great idea, a video on why and how to 3D print. I may get into that the next time I do a project with 3D printing. What has been a large-scale project that you've contemplated but keep avoiding due to the size, cost, time, etc.? Well, the main one is this room that I'm sitting in because this is my office where I do all my voiceover and editing and 3D modeling and whatnot. And it was the room that I was going to do the Haunted Mansion theming. And because we're talking about possibly moving, I figured if we were to show this house with a Haunted Mansion themed room, it probably would not go over well with potential buyers. And I didn't want to have to spend the money, do all the work, enjoy it for a short amount of time, and then have to undo all of it to get it ready to sell. So this is the one thing that like I've wanted to do for a really long time. But until we're like dead set on where it is that we're going to live for the rest of our lives, I'm going to hold off. Let's see. Okay, so there's no questions in chat. I'm going to go to the questions from YouTube, from the community tab. And I have one. How did you get involved with Arthur Dark and Hollywood Graveyard with their latest Nosferatu mini movie? Did they reach out to you? Have you known Arthur? Arthur is local to me, and weirdly enough, I was already a fan of the Hollywood Graveyard channel. If you like cemeteries, if you are a taphophile or a person that likes tombstones uh, and celebrities, I would definitely go check out his channel. His videos are fantastic. But he'd actually reached out to friends of mine, Hollywood Haunter, and unfortunately, they were busy working on really big props for the Winchester Mystery House. And I don't know if they recommended me or if he knew of my channel, and I didn't think to ask. But he sent me an email and he said that he was working on a project and that he thought I would be a good fit to help them make this massive casket for for their movie, and then it all came together. And if you haven't watched it, it's a great, it's about 30-ish minutes, and is very much like a continuation of the 1922 Nosferatu film. It's, really well done. It's very charming and dark and macabre and all the things that we kinda like about Halloween. So, um, I would go head over to the Hollywood Graveyard channel after this live stream, of course, and, and go check it out. Let's see. How did I break into the industry? I mean, the short answer is I'm still trying to. Um, I I feel like this dovetails into another question, if I can see it. Where is it? Oh, so I'm gonna piggyback another question onto this one. So I make videos on YouTube with the intention that someone in a position in a big effects house or at a studio would see the work and I could use it sort of as a portfolio of sorts. And I had made a Star Wars themed light switch cover plate, I think 3 years ago, and someone who owns an effects shop saw that video, bought a switch plate cover, and then explained what it is that he does for work and invited me to come check out his shop. And he basically asked, like, "Would you ever want to come and work in a shop?" And I explained what I just explained to you guys. And then a handful of months went by, and then, I got a text message from him inquiring about my work schedule, and he thought that there was a project that I would be interested in. Come to find out, it was The Mandalorian, um, and so I got to help build some of the Mandalorian armor for the last season, which is the dovetail question, can I share any of the work that I've done with Disney? Technically, I didn't work for Disney. I worked for a vendor for Disney. Um, but it was a lot of fun. And and I got to make Star Wars stuff, so it's great. Let's see. Do I have any plans to make props or builds for other holidays, or is Halloween the only one you're really interested in? Yes, Halloween is the only one I'm interested in. Did I have to sign an NDA? Yes, I did. Um, which is typically the case with any production. Let's see. What has been my all-time favorite build and why? I don't know the answer to this question, weirdly enough. Um, I enjoy them all. I think the ones that are probably the most enjoyable play a bit into ego, where it it starts off being a great idea and then it gets really challenging, and then I come up with a solution, or Mrs. Van Oaks has a great solution, which happens often. Um, and then it comes together and it's everything that I had hoped it would be. Those always are favorites to me. um, I think anything that has a lot of preparation involved, where I'm doing a lot of research, those are always really enjoyable to me. I've said this in previous live streams. I love the hunt. I love learning as much as I can about a particular subject before I get started. Um, and and so any project where I've had to do a deep dive to learn about something, whether it really applied to the project itself or not. Um, yeah, those are typically my favorites, but I don't know that there's like one in particular. I would say in the most recent past, the Haunted Mansion door frame was really rewarding in an unexpected way. You know, I like 3D modeled all the stuff and then I printed it in all these chunks and then started gluing it together. And it's not until you get to that point in a build where you're actually starting to see the thing take shape, where you're like, wow, I'm like doing the thing that I had set out to do. And now um it's real. It's like a physical, tangible thing. And and then once it was completely done and I was able to set it up, well, lay it out because it's, 10 feet tall, um, and really see it as a solid piece, like that part was a little like, whoa, like I literally made this thing and it's the same size that it is in the ride. And it's like such a recognizable thing to me as a fan of the Haunted Mansion to be like, I built it, it's done. I'm very happy with how it's turned out. I feel like the client is going to really like it. Like that was just the convergence of all the good feelings that you want and was just this, very like proud maker moment. So, let's see. So this question actually has come up a lot, both in comments on last week's pumpkin video, um, and in the past. The question is basically, why did I choose a 12-volt system and RCA plugs? And the short answer was, or is, I literally had a dream about it, and when I woke up in the morning, I thought, "I'm gonna see if this actually works." Because my thinking was like, I in the past, I basically just, like, taken the LEDs and I'd used, like, wire nuts or electrical tape. And every Halloween was, like, out there, put the wire nuts on the thing, let's wrap it in electrical tape and whatever, and it was just exhausting, um, and more so during cleanup, and I just thought, like, there's gotta be a better way to do this, and I don't have the budget to, like, buy a really nice set of lights that have, proprietary connections and whatnot, and I had a lot of RCA cables laying around, so I was able to test to see whether or not this would actually work. And then the fact that it's 12 volt is just, because that's all that LEDs need. Um, the caveat to all of this was that the, um, the weather here in the LA area is rarely wet, during October, and so I've never had to worry about rain or wires shorting out or any of those problems. I would say if you live somewhere that actually gets weather, it may be a larger concern. I think there's also ways that you can get around it. So, a haunter friend of mine, Greg from Restless Souls Manor in Palmdale, had suggested taking shrink tubing and putting it over the male connector, the outside ring of the male connector, so that there's at least sort of that like protective coating over the part that would be exposed the most, um, which is a great addition to that setup if you wanted to do something a bit more weather resistant. Um, but generally speaking, you could probably just wrap it with electrical tape if you really wanted to. Um, I feel like if you had a 3D printer, you could probably like 3D print yourself a little clamshell cover for them. If again, if you really wanted to go overboard. to protect it, but because it's low voltage, I kind of felt like it seemed all right. Let's see. Can you speak a bit about Mrs. Van Oak's collaboration and support? Always delightful when she makes an appearance. So, Mrs. Van Oak's, my wife Erin, is uh, equally as talented and creative as I am, if not more so. Um, she's she doesn't think the same way that I do, which makes her a huge benefit to me because I can kind of get tunnel vision once I think I've figured out how to do something. And it can be a problem because then I'm like, well, this is the only way that it can be done and it can't be done any other. And when I find that I've like hit a spot where something isn't making sense or I'm not sure if the thing looks right or if it could look better, um, that is when she typically will pop in and say, "Well, if you did this or you did that, or have you thought about trying this, or what if it's something completely different?" And more often than not, somewhere in between her idea and my idea is the right idea. Um, and yeah, I mean, if I had my way about it and YouTube was a great way to make a living, we would do this together. But um, for now, she she holds down the fort. She has the regular 9 to 5 job, and I have the irregular 9 to 5 job. Let's see what else do we have. What drives you more, the process of figuring out how to solve the logistical or production problems, or the finished product itself? It's a little bit of both, but I think I enjoy the figuring it out part more. Let's see. Am I planning to stay in the LA area? No, no. The plan is to go somewhere outside of California potentially. Let's see. Where do I store my props? I had mentioned this earlier, Doug, but I don't think you had joined us yet. Um, our The limitation for our props is it's got to fit in the garage, and so I've got a bunch of shelves that are um, kind of up in the rafters, and that's where everything goes. Let's see. Let's look at some of the Instagram questions. How many test pieces do you do before you film a video? 0. I It's a character flaw. When I think I've figured something out in my head, I am 99.9% sure that it's gonna work, and so I just hit record and hope for the best. My track record is impressive, though, I will say that. There's been a few times where I've gone down a pathway only to go, "Nope, that doesn't work at all." And I think typically when that happens, I will mention it in the video too. Let's see. What is a skill, like painting or sculpting, that you would love to master? I'd love to be good at sculpting. Honestly, I'd love to be better at all of the things that I do. Um, I don't know that I'd ever wanna be a master because a master at something implies that you've learned all there is to learn, and, I much like doing the deep dive and learning all I can about a build or something, like, that kind of all comes in play with this too. Like, I want to continue my education to learn as much as I can and know that I will never know everything about a particular subject, um, which is good. The quest for knowledge, um, I think is, weirdly something that drives me, although I was a terrible student, um, and I think that, you know, getting better with time is just how it goes, um, yeah, I think it's I don't think I could really say any more um, about that. And I will say this, sculpting both physically and digitally, just because I feel like that's where a lot of this stuff is headed. Um, do I ever see myself growing my cemetery haunt into a walkthrough? No, no. The logistics of doing it, the insurance, I would be a basket case. Um, as it is, we don't really let people come up our walkway because we had one really bad Halloween experience where a bunch of children flooded the cemetery and, just started, like, touching things and fumbling around in the yard, and I just thought, like, "Oh my god, somebody's gonna trip over something or unplug something, it's just gonna be a nightmare," um, so I don't know that I would ever do a larger scale, haunt. Let's see. What's your real job? You're looking at it. I make YouTube videos for a living. Thank you to my patrons who helped to make that a reality, and to all of you who watch the videos. Um, it's I was at a weird point in my life where the career that I had had for over a decade kind of felt like it was disappearing, and between that and a pandemic, you guys really like stepped up and showed up and watched the videos and commented and participated in this community that we've built together and have made it possible for me to do this full time. So thank you all for doing that. How long does it take you to make one of your videos? It kind of depends. If it's like one of these I can get it done in a week videos, Monday is planning, Tuesday and possibly Wednesday is filming. Thursday is editing and voiceover, and Friday is final watch down with a fresh set of eyes, to make sure that I haven't misspelled anything or whatnot. And yeah, yeah, I think that's about it. It's if I had to like really pack it in, I would do it. I think 3 days is probably the shortest amount of time that I've done a video in. Maybe two, probably three. Let's see what else. Okay. So we're closing in on the hour, so I'm going to wrap this up with a question from someone who I hold in very high regard, Dave Lowe. Which, if you are unfamiliar with his work, do a Google search. Dave Lowe, Lowe. He's one of the most creative, resourceful makers I've ever had the pleasure of knowing. And I am fortunate enough to call him a friend. And he asked the following. It says, "For all the years I was obsessed with my yard haunt display when I had a house and a yard to create. I always loved making better and bigger every year. Yet now that I can't do that anymore, living in a smaller place, I of course miss doing it, but at the same time, I'm relieved not feeling like I have to anymore and enjoy not feeling the pressure. The question is, do you get burnt out and want to take a break from feeling obligated to decorate every year and make it better, especially now as an example people look to for haunt decorating?" Okay. this question is very real because it's true, and I think this is, I think everybody that does this feels like this at some point, where whether it is real or manufactured in our own minds, we feel pressure to improve upon the things that we've done the year prior. And yes, having the YouTube channel has definitely made that feel more real. Um, and yes, there's definitely been some years where I've thought, you know what? I gotta take a break from doing this stuff. And I think it was the first year of the pandemic where we didn't do our display, and I it felt super weird, um, not having anything up, but also weirdly enjoyable at the same time because there wasn't that feeling of, we said we're gonna be set up by this date, and we gotta make sure that everything's working, and, all of the anxiety inducing things that come along with having a Halloween display where you like to kinda tinker with stuff, and you're always sort of trying new things, even a haunt like ours, which has been the same for over a decade, um, yeah, there's definitely, like, that feeling of burnout, and I think that kind of might have been part of why I was feeling a little burnt out this week. Um, Setting up the haunt took a lot more out of me this year just because the weather was so bad. It was like 105 the weekend that we set up the haunt. So it just made it feel like a chore. Um, so yeah, all of that to be said, it definitely there's definitely some years where I felt like maybe we don't do it this year. And then the more I think about it, the more I realize that I will likely have a feeling of regret on the flip side from not doing it. Because whether or not people come to see the display, I still enjoy it. I like hearing all of the sounds and seeing the lights and all that sort of stuff. And so, um, if I didn't do it for me, I feel like I'd miss it. So it's kind of a catch 22. Let's see. Got 2 minutes. See if I can squeeze in another question. Um, What do I think of inflatables? I think if that's what you're into, that's great. They're not my cup of tea, but I tend to subscribe to the idea that, like, the more Halloween decorations we have, the more Halloween there is to enjoy. So do what you enjoy. I'm sure there's people that think that doing a cemetery in my front yard is ridiculous. Um, I think that's it. And I think this is probably as good a place as any to wrap up this pre-Halloween live stream. Thank you all for joining me, um, and for once again making haunt season the thing that it is. Uh, and oh yes, Mr. Yorkie lover, I will come get the hat today. Shout out to Mr. and Mrs. Halloween lover here in Sherman Oaks for their haunt. They were kind enough to make me a SoCal haunt list baseball cap. Um, and go see their haunt. If you're in the LA area, go check out the SoCalHauntList.com website. Go see all of the Halloween displays. Um, Anyhow, thank you once again. If you want to support the channel in any way, there's always Patreon, or you can get the Van Oaks Props merch, and there's links to all of that on my YouTube channel. Um, and if not, I will see you guys all in 2 weeks with a new video, and have a wonderful Halloween. I hope it is everything that you deserve. I don't know. Deserve just seemed like the weirdest word once it came out of my mouth. Anyhow, enjoy the rest of your weekend. Happy haunting, and I will see you guys soon.